All right, welcome to another edition of Outspoken. I'm Dan Sileo. We are 6 days out from the National Football League's draft. We have NHL and NBA playoffs starting up. Guys, fire the cannons. All right, guys, without a doubt, one of the things that really was dominating the scenes when it came to social media this past week was Dianna Russini and the Mike Vrabel story. So much so that it cost Dianna Russini her job at The Athletic / the New York Times. He issued an apology, and obviously this ended up being collateral damage to her and her career. Where that goes, we don't know. Obviously, she took the brunt of this conversation the entire week, really gone on for 10 days now with Dianna Russini and this Mike Vrabel story. Yeah, anything coming out of New England yet? Here's the apology here. Listen, there's no doubt that Dianna was really facing the brunt of all of it. I mean, you saw what went on the entire week. You saw people actually losing their job because they were commenting on this story. Now, let's go to the other end. Because at the end of the day here, what's the collateral damage for Mike Vrabel and the New England Patriots? Think about this. So you have a head football coach that goes into meetings each and every single day and has team meetings with his team. And what you're trying to do with your football team each and every single day is motivate these men with character. You tell these guys that, listen, guys, I want men of character in my building. I want men of character that are going to be in the same direction as rowing in the same direction when it comes to a common goal, and that's to win a Super Bowl. I'm looking for men that understand that we have to do this together. I want men of great and high integrity. I want people that are going to be in our organization that we can count on. When the going gets tough, I want to have all those type of speeches so that I can connect with my players. Remember, at the end of the day, when you're a player, it's almost like a religion. You got to believe in blind faith. You got to believe in your coach in what he's saying when he's talking about men of character. Well, explain this to me. How are you talking to your football team like that about character when the first moment you leave the building, you have lack of character? You can't practice what you're preaching. If you can't practice what you're preaching, how am I buying into anything that you're telling me? I think you're full of bull if you're giving me all these speeches. You're giving me these Newt Rockne speeches. You're telling me of character. And at the end of the day, you leave the building, and the first thing you do is you're cheating on your old lady? Well, make this make sense to me. If you cheat on your wife, allegedly, you're sitting there going to try to tell me that you're going to really be a man of character and you're going to have a man of integrity, and you're talking to me about having that intangible of understanding that you got to follow me because I want you to have great character and you don't have it? How in God's name do I buy with anything you're saying? I'm not buying anything you're saying. I think you're full of BS. That's collateral damage. You know, when you're a football team and you're looking for your head coach to have leadership, you're looking for your head football coach to lead by example. That's not leading by example. That's actually a practice. Okay, you can't practice what you preach? I mean, give me a break here, man. How in God's name do you sit there as a head football coach and give these Newt Rockne speeches about character? Now, look, let's take a look at the New England Patriots as an organization. The owner literally got caught with his pants down. You're talking about an organization that had a murderer in it, Aaron Hernandez, Spygate, Deflategate. You have all these issues that have been in that organization for the last 20 years. I'm supposed to believe that the New England Patriots are high in character? Based on what? I guess maybe this stuff bleeds from the top down with Bob Kraft. How in God's name do you sit there and tell me that the New England Patriots even care about anything of character when it comes to Vrabel? Collateral damage? Hey, if I'm a football player in that locker room and I hear a guy giving me a speech and the rah-rah speech and the Rockne stuff, I look at him and say, you're full of BS, dude. That's the collateral damage you have. All right. So listen, the New York Mets. I hate to pile on Steve Cohen, but Steve Cohen went on WFAN this last week, and you have to help me out here in understanding where the New York Mets are going. He's not in any way concerned about the horrible start with this team. Hell, WWE star Danhausen even came in. And Danhausen even came in and wanted to give the reverse juju and try to help the baseball team be able to go out there and try to lift up the curse here in their horrible start. Do you know that this is the worst team that money could buy? This is worse than the 93 team, the Bobby Bonilla team. I mean, where are the Mets going here with this? Help me out here with the Mets. I mean, Steve Cohen, like I said, this guy goes on WFAN radio and he tries to tell you that, hey, don't worry about it. We're in the right place right now. This baseball team, folks, spent more money a year ago than the Los Angeles Dodgers. That's over $500 million. And get this, they suck. Okay, the Metropolitans suck. Hey, I always tell Met fans this. Come October, make sure you turn your hat inside out and become a Yankee fan because you're going nowhere with that organization and with that owner. Man, I hate to stay in the metropolitan area, but I'm going to stay in the metropolitan area here, and we're going to go to the New York Jets here. Help me out here on Woody Johnson. So Woody Johnson has owned the New York Jets for 25 years. 15 consecutive seasons, they have not made the playoffs. You know, I got asked a question about the upcoming NFL draft this next Thursday. Do you think the Jets are going to turn it around and the Jets have an opportunity to maybe see the light at the end of the tunnel? Jets get the second pick in the upcoming NFL draft this next Thursday. And I answer back and say this, does it matter? Will it matter? Woody Johnson picks his players when it comes to making potential trades based off of Madden because his kid says, hey, Dad, Jerry Jeudy's got a bad Madden rating, so we can't make the deal with Cleveland to bring the guy into the building. Eric Glenn's the worst coach in pro football. You're bringing back a guy who got his ass kicked in the locker room before by the Jets teammates. Nobody stood up for the guy. And you bring that guy back into the building, Geno Smith? Okay. Hey, very Jets-like. Let's go and get the guy who we hated and everybody in the locker room hated, and let's bring him back into the mix. He's the starting quarterback of the New York Jets, and you have Aaron Glenn. Thank God Frank Reich's in the building. At least Frank Reich's got a Super Bowl ring in what he did with the Philadelphia Eagles as the offensive coordinator and worked with Jim Kelly in the past. I got to tell you, very Jets-like. Woody Johnson, Steve Cohen. I don't know who's the worst owner. Take a look at Woody here, okay? He was taken and had his duties taken away from running Johnson & Johnson. Now he's been given the toy of the New York Jets. 25 years. Fireman Ed is going to end up having a hemorrhage in his brain because of how many times he hits his head with the hammer there at MetLife. I mean, dude, does it matter where the Jets go in the draft? Sills, the Jets need this. The Jets need that. They need some offensive line help. Doesn't matter. Whether it's the general manager, the head coach, or the quarterback. There's no helping the Jets as long as Woody Johnson owns the football team. You know, you've got Jimmy Haslam in Cleveland, and you got Stephen Ross with the Miami Dolphins, and you got the legendary Woody Johnson, the Jets. Where are they going next Thursday? You know where they're going? Nowhere. All right. Hey, got to talk about my great friends at Morgan & Morgan, the number one injury law firm in all of America for a reason. Folks, they win. That's right. Family-owned, family-run. They've been around for over 25 years. There's no company like it. I tell you about the family in Pennsylvania that was initially offered $650K. They got over $30 million in settlement. Where the family that was offered in Florida $350,000, they were offered nearly $12 million in settlement, and that's what they got because of Morgan & Morgan. Go to forthepeople.com/big sales or pound love 529. That's forthepeople.com/big sales or pound love 529. And do me a favor, you tell them Big Sales sent you. Hey, we got a lot going on when it comes to Major League Baseball. We got a lot going on when it comes to the NHL playoffs. George Kurtz, we'll talk to him next. You keep it right here on SportsGrid. NHL playoffs, is there any better run that you could go on if you have goaltending? I mean, listen, if you got a guy like Vasilevsky and you're Tampa Bay, you've got to have an opportunity to go on and win yourself another Stanley Cup here. George Kurtz joins us now here, and I'm looking at the Bolts for me as being a favorite to win the Stanley Cup. I saw Gretzky also make that comment. George, for you, who do you like to potentially win the Stanley Cup this year?
Well, everybody and their mother really is predicting the Lightning to come out of the East, right? And listen, it makes perfect sense. They're probably one of, if not the most well-rounded team in the NHL, the most well-rounded in the Eastern Conference. Now, Dan, I'm on the Lightning as well, all right? So I don't see how they don't, but we don't know what's happening with Victor Hedman, all right? I mean, I think they could survive a round, maybe even two. But as we get a little further into this, if Victor Hedman is not going to return, he's out with a personal injury. We don't. I shouldn't say injury. Personal reasons. So we don't know when he's returning. The interview with Coop the other night, John Coop, the head coach. Now he wouldn't tell us anyway. All right, that's what they do. State secrets. They're not telling us. But he didn't sound like he's coming back from round one. Once again, maybe he's going to play tomorrow. It could very well be, but that's a huge loss, and I don't think they can win it without him. So I think they do need him to show up here, but I do expect them to win round one.
What about Vasilevsky? How great do you think he is? I mean, is he in that conversation with the Dominik Haseks and the Brodeurs and the Waz, or does he have to win another cup? He's got two already with a potential to go out and potentially win a third cup. That would put him in the Brodeur room. How good do you think he is?
I think he's pretty close to the Mount Rushmore of NHL goaltenders all time. I don't think I'm going to put anybody above Brodeur Roy. All right, and Brodeur is probably number one for me because he was so good handling the puck. He was once again a third defenseman back there, sixth player on the ice, so he can handle the puck so well. He's one of the reasons they made that rule in the trapezoid, was to stop him from doing it. So I'll put him at number one. Roy is probably number two, and after that, we can have the talk about Vasilevsky being number three. I'm talking all the time, not in today's game, all the time. So, yeah, I don't think he needs to win another cup. I always think that's kind of crazy, by the way, that you have to win it. Dan Marino's not a great all-time quarterback because he never won a Super Bowl. I think it's kind of idiotic. But that being said, he's the best goalie in today's NHL. Not as good as he used to be, Dan. He's gotten older. He's not the goaltender he used to be, but still the best in today's NHL. Another reason. Because, Dan, now you and I have been around forever, all right? There are a lot of teams in this NHL playoffs that they have a 1A and a 1B. We don't see that. But about half the teams in this tournament here have two goaltenders. We're going to go, who's starting today? Which one here? That sort of game here. Now with Tampa Bay, we know it's Vasilevsky.
Absolutely. So how good are the Avalanche, you think? I mean, from start to finish this year, they have just been great in the West. Tell me how far you think that team has an opportunity of going.
Well, they're going to win round one. They're playing the Kings. If there's one series that could be a sweep, it's that one, right? So they get the Patsies in round one. They'll have no problem. After that, they're going to go right up against, because the NHL's insane playoff system, all right, they're going to go right up against Dallas or Minnesota. Do I think they win either series? Sure. Do I think it's going to be easy? No. Would it shock me if it comes down to a game 7? No. So I think, I think it's going to be tough. And then let's face it, the third round, they're probably playing Edmonton or Vegas. Easier series, but once again, not easy as far as getting to the cup there. I think they are the favorite, but once again, what did I say about earlier about the goaltenders? Do we trust Wedgwood and Blackwood? I don't know. I mean, listen, McKinnon, great. McCart, great. Hall of Fame is fine. But, goaltending, in baseball, it's starting pitching. Football, it's the quarterback. In hockey, it's the goaltending. And I don't know if I trust Wedgwood and/or Blackwood. So we'll see here. But, yeah, I'm going to go with the chalk here. I do think it's going to be Colorado versus Tampa. But I feel better about Tampa getting there than I do Colorado.
How about this with Vegas? The impact of Tortorella, obviously a Stanley Cup winning head coach, guy's been around a bit. What do you think the impact that he has on Vegas during the playoffs?
Well, it's hard to argue the numbers here. Remember, they were going to make the playoffs, but they were falling apart when he was hired there, right? They were having issues. They weren't winning games here, and they certainly didn't look like they were going to win the division. Tortorella comes on board 7-0-1. Now, listen, Dan, I'm the first person to tell you, the schedule said, they were going to win the games. All right. It was an easy schedule. Maybe the GM looked at that and go, now's the good time to fire the coach and get a new guy in there. And it worked out here. But they look like a different team all of a sudden. Vegas is a heavy team, right? They're not going to dazzle you like the Avalanche will and have little superstars, but they're a heavy team. In a 7-game series, they're generally no fun to play because they want to wear you down. All right. I do expect Vegas and Edmonton to end up meeting each other there in the playoffs. That'll be an interesting matchup there. We know Edmonton's the high-flying team. Vegas more, like I said, the heavy team. We'll see how that works out. But the same thing with Vegas. There, do you trust Hart? Hill? Throw in net there? Schmid? I don't. And I think that's going to be their undoing there as far as getting to where they want to go.
All right, so I'm an old Connecticut guy, so I keep an eye on the Carolina Hurricanes because of the Whaler connection there. How good is this Carolina Hurricane team? They've been pretty consistent all year long, George. How far do you think they can go? Do you think they can give Tampa Bay a run in the East?
Oh, I do. I think our problem with the Canes is this. Under Brindamore, they get to a certain part in the playoffs. He seems to only be able to get them that so far, and then you need that next guy or the next system, whatever it might be here. Now, this is not the same Canes team as we've seen in the past. They're a little different here. So, listen, would I be shocked if you told me right now that the Canes are in the Cup Finals? No, I would not be, because I think if they can get there, and listen, I think they win round one. Round two is probably where it gets a little bit more interesting, but if they win round two as well, I think Canes Lightning Conference Finals, woo, fun. Now I'll say the same thing about the Canes. You mentioned you're an old Connecticut boy. I'm a Long Island boy. I believe the starting goaltender is going to be Busey, Long Island. So we'll see. Rooting for the guy here, but he's still a rookie or a young player. I mean, I don't know how he's going to hold up here in the Stanley Cup playoffs. I don't, especially as the matchups get tougher here. So I think the Canes are a threat here. And like I said, I'm not. If anybody's going to tell me, I'm about the Canes are going to go, I'm not arguing with you. I think they have a damn good shot. I'm picking the Lightning, but the Canes are my second choice here. I think anybody else would be a surprise here. The goaltending I do worry a little bit about, but yeah, I think the Canes are extremely legitimate.
Boy, you bring up Long Island, and when I was a senior in high school, actually when I was in high school, every year I was in high school, George, the New York Islanders won the Stanley Cup. So I was a Billy Smith guy growing up. I was a Trottier guy, and I was a Mike Bossy dude, all them great teams. I don't think anybody will ever break that record, 26 consecutive series won with those New York Islander teams.
No, I doubt it. Not in, today's NHL is a little tougher here. You have 7-game series, not 5 back in the day. I grew up at Elmont. For anybody who knows Long Island, it's about 5 miles from the Coliseum. I was literally maybe a couple of houses off Hempstead Turnpike where they had the parades. So yeah, I grew up with Trottier. As an older guy, we see some of our heroes pass. Garrett Anderson passed yesterday for the Los Angeles Angels. When Clark Gillies and Mike Bossy passed, that hurt. All right, that was my childhood heroes who moved on here. That hurt.
Absolutely. One of the greatest teams in the history of sports were those New York Islander teams back in the day, man. I absolutely love them. More with George Kurtz. We're going to drop a bunt here, and we're going to go play some baseball with them. We'll do that next here on SportsGrid. Hey, without a doubt here, Major League Baseball, too. We're now starting to approach the 20th game. George Kurtz is here with us now. We're going to talk some Major League Baseball here. And, okay, man, what's up with the Amazings? What's going on with the Mets? I hear Steve Cohen, going on New York radio telling me that the Amazings are doing well, but the worst team money can buy. What's going on with the Mets, George?
Well, if you're a fan in here in New York, you already know the sky is full and chicken noodle and all that, chicken little. It's sort of a continuation of what happened last year in September, right? They're having all sorts of issues. They're not getting pitching. Senga got ripped apart again yesterday. What did David Stearns tell us? It was all lies, mind you, but they were about team defense, and then he hires Polanco for first base. Pichetto's never played third base. Beatty's in the outfield. There's Semyon, who has about as much range as a Daisy air rifle playing second base, and there's all sorts of problems. Nothing's working here. It can't all be because Juan Soto's out. That's a huge loss. He's one of the top 3-4 players in baseball. I get it. But your whole team falls apart after he goes down here. Not good. It's not a good look. I don't think anyone's going to run away with it in the National League East. So I don't think the Mets are dead. But Dan, I don't know how they get fixed either. Their rotation was always going to be a problem. It was always on the weaker side here. They were going to have to hit themselves out of this, and now they're not doing it. If Lindor's not going to have the MVP year they need him to have, it's going to be a long summer in Queens.
So let's go to Los Angeles here with Ohtani. Are we going to see more of this trend, George, where when he gets on the mound, you're not going to see the Dodgers DHing him because the last two outings that he has had, he's been electric on the mound. I mean, maybe they're going to look more towards him on the starting rotation more so and take away some of these at-bats because, I mean, what do you have, 10 Ks the last time out? Before that, he had 6 Ks. You think we're going to see more of this trend with him not hitting when he's on the rubber?
I wonder this, Dan. Now the Angels did that, by the way, right? They generally when he pitched, he didn't hit, which is fine. I have no issues with that. But I wonder if Ohtani's going like this. I've won 17 MVPs. I'm one of the greatest hitters in the game, right? Boy, if I could get a Cy Young, if I can, then I am the greatest player ever, right? There's no more Babe Ruth talk, right? I am the greatest player ever here. So I wonder if that's part of the reasoning here. He wants to go for that Cy Young, win that award, and then he's on the Mount Rushmore. Baseball players all time here. This is nuts. If he can pull that off. So I wonder if that's part of the thinking here. Do I think he's going to sit every game that he pitches? No, I don't see that. But I think they might do it more often than we think. This may come to more fantasy players who would now have to worry about him sitting for 1 day a week, something like that. But I do wonder if that's playing into it, that he really wants to go for the Cy Young, which, by the way, I don't see anyone stopping him if he really does want to go for it. He is that kind of player.
Yeah, maybe Yamamoto on his team would probably be the only other guy that might give him a fight for that there. Hey, how about the Tampa Bay Rays here? Listen, it's not, anything to look at right now with 20 games. We're so early into the season here, George. But still, getting out of the gate, they're putting runs across the dish. They're getting starting pitching. Shane McClanahan got his first win since 2023. Could this be a surprise team this year? Could they be around that 85 win mark, potentially getting in as a wild card?
I think they'll be there for a while. The problem with the Rays is always going to be depth. We know they don't have it, right? It's a small market team. They're not going to spend a lot of money. So when injuries mount up, it'll be a problem. But once again, for older people, the Rays play baseball. They play baseball. They'll bunt runners over. They'll hit and run. They're going to put a lot of pressure on your defense to make the plays. They're not going to hit a lot of home runs. Outside of Caminero, maybe a little bit of Aranda and Diaz, there's not a lot of pop in that lineup. But if you watch the Rays last weekend against the Yankees, Simpson's going to get on base. He's going to run. All right, and you better go try and stop him. They're going to bunt runners over. You better make the right plays here and take the outs. The Yankees did not. All right, and they made a mistake, get the mistake, and they're going to put pressure on the defense. I love the way the Rays play baseball. They're back in Tampa, back in Tropicana. Yeah, it may be the worst field in baseball, but they're not in Steinbrenner Field anymore, so they're not trying to hit home runs. They're going to play baseball. Use that turf, run, speed, hit, play the game the way it was meant to be played. I do like the Rays. I think they'll be good for a while, but I think they'll, as the season goes on, I think they're going to have their problems.
I think they got one of the best managers in all of baseball in Kevin Cash, too. He's just been sensational. All right, George, who's Mason Miller? Help me out here. Who is this guy? This guy, Padres just get some news yesterday that they sold the team for $3.9 billion. And by the way, Peter Seidler bought the team for $600 million. That's quite an investment that he made in return for that family there. But you tell me, Mason Miller, who the hell is this guy?
Yeah, 3.9 billion. I don't want to hear Major League Baseball owners crying poverty here. Okay, that's not the Yankees who went for the 3.9. That was San Diego. Mason Miller, reliever for the Athletics. They did want to make him a starter at one point. The Athletics said Padres thought about it. He is lights out as a reliever, throwing the ball almost 103 miles an hour. So he's always considered a top guy here, but not a guy who could start because he couldn't throw 103 consistently and doesn't have great secondary pitches. It's just that fastball. He's I don't think maybe he is the best reliever in baseball right now. He's the closer. He coming in. They got a lead in the ninth. The game is all but over.
Absolutely. Making a statement in the National League West. George, appreciate it, brother. Thank you. One of the legendary players of all time in NFL history, George Kurtz, next, right here on SportsGrid. Let me tell you, I love talking to this man. We have been friends a long time, and he brings it each and every single time we talk to our friend Joe Theismann, former NFL MVP, Super Bowl champion. He joins us right now here on the program. Joe, thank you so much for doing this. I'm going to start you out with a hard one here. 18 games. Joe, you were in the game when we had 14 games, and then you went to 16 games. 18 games. Right. Joe Flacco made some comments about it and says, if you care about the health of the players, Joe, 18 games seems like a little too much. What's next? 20? What's your take on that, Joe?
It doesn't seem like too much, Dan. It is too much. But again, the owners are thinking revenue. Players have to be thinking, we hear this safety issue. I think for the last 2 years, there's been over 60 starting quarterbacks in the National Football League, or guys that have started games. Heck, Phillip Rivers at the age of 45 had to come out of retirement after 5 years to get on a roster for the Indianapolis Colts, who had a chance maybe to make it to the playoffs. And so that tells you you're out of quarterbacks. If you're going to go to 18 games, you have to increase the active roster on Sunday. You've got to put more players to the availability of the coaches so that you at least have people to be able to play the game. Or else, if you lose, say 3 or 4 guys at the same position, if you lose corners, if you lose defensive linemen, if you lose offensive linemen, where are you going to go? I think 18 games is a lot. And this is part of the way the system is set up today. If you're a young quarterback coming into the National Football League, you have no chance to learn how to play the game at the professional level because you get absolutely no training camp time. There's no preseason games, Dan. There's 3 preseason games now. That means they're going to go to 2. And so where are you going to find playing time for a rookie quarterback. You're not going to put him on the field if you drafted him in the first round. You don't want to risk the chance of him getting hurt. How are you going to evaluate players? I think there's a myriad of issues when it comes to just 2 preseason games. I think there's a problem with 3. When you go to 18 games, obviously it's a question of revenue, and the NFL sells to everybody. We've got the NFL on every streaming service, every network, and every place else. Hey, that's their decision. I just think from a player standpoint, you're going to run out of people. And that's the problem. You at least have to address the size of the rosters on Sunday.
How about this too, Joe? Adding another bye maybe too? Would you add a second bye into that to try to get the players a little bit healthier? Because, again, sometimes a Sunday to Thursday game, I mean, hey, I'm just looking to try to make the players a little bit more safer because they tell us they want safety, Joe.
They do, and it's a thing they should demand. You add another bye. Now what are we going to play into March? I mean, all of a sudden the NFL season is going to continue to go on and on and on, and you've got buys and disruptions. I played when we didn't have a bye. I played when we just played football. Played a lot of football, and good. I'm glad that they want to protect the players now. But are you really protecting the players? If a guy gets hurt bad enough that he's going to miss more than a week, then what good does the bye do you? And now you've got what? Who is it? San Francisco and Seattle, I believe. Somebody playing in Australia. That's it's got to be a West Coast team. There's talks about wanting one in Europe. I mean, you see NFL wanting to expand on an international basis. I think that as you continue to extend the season, you create the susceptibility of players being hurt. And you have to, like I said, to me, you've got to be able to increase roster size. You're paying the guys anyway. You've got a limited amount of guys that you can dress on Sunday. Dress them all. Dress whatever you're paying. So at least you have players to be able to do it. And that'll protect the health, I believe, of the players a little bit. But adding another bye just complicates the scheduling situation.
Joe, I want to give you a chance to respond to what Bernie Kosar told me about. You mentioned it about developing today's quarterbacks. He said technology is hurting the development of the quarterbacks by, they had those earpieces. And he said, when I got to the line of scrimmage, I had to dissect a defense and I had to find my landmarks. I had to find my pre-snap reads. He said it was for me to go to the line of scrimmage, and Marty was in my ear telling me, you have to figure it out. Well, technology today, Joe, you're telling the quarterback where to go with the ball. Do you think technology and those earpieces, again, when it comes to the development of the quarterbacks, is hurt the game? Because you guys had to rip defenses apart by your knowledge.
I don't think it's hurt the game, Dan. I think it's hurt the development of a quarterback. And I do believe in Birdie completely, because those communicators get cut off with 15 seconds to go. They ought to move that up to cut them off at 20 seconds. Cut the coaches off at 20 seconds. Give me a chance in the huddle to look at an Art Monk or to look at a Gary Clark and say, Larry, listen, if the guy sits on you on this route, just take it up past him. The quarterback cannot communicate with anybody in the huddle to have a conversation to set up a play. Now it's regurgitating what the coach has said. A lot of times now, certain people like John Gruden was very smart. He would you'd have a police sheet on your wrist. He'd say, number 1. Okay, then you're able to that's the way the communicator makes sense. But I agree with Bernie. The development of the quarterback position is getting worse and worse and worse because you don't see live action, you don't get game time experience, and you're going to have to develop in a slower way. And to me, if you don't have the people around you, it's going to be a tough road to be able to play the game the way it should be played by the quarterback.
Do you agree, Joe, that the development of the quarterback and also the development of what you just said with practice time with the O-line, how are you going to develop these offenses when you don't have enough practice time? Hey, developing a offensive lineman, Joe, and a left tackle, that's a lot more difficult than what people think when it comes to developing a defensive tackle. It's the limited time in practice. How do you overcome that?
Well, Dan, it is difficult. The only way you overcome it is you have to reconcile yourself to the fact that the first 2 regular season, possibly first 3 regular season football games are preseason games. From a conditioning standpoint, from a physical standpoint, from a developmental standpoint for the players as well as the quarterback. But that's what you're going to see. That's why you see the ball on the ground so much. That's why the mistakes are made so early, because you never get a chance to make a mistake in preseason. Plus, the other thing is when I played in a game when there were 6 preseason games. Do I recommend it? Absolutely not. I played when there were 4. 4 was a good number where coaches could evaluate a player. If you're a free agent trying to make a football team now, every play in practice is so vitally important to your ability to make the football team. Every play is so important. Every thought, every time you line up, every time you try and catch a ball, the pressure is immense because you don't have the time to make a mistake or learn.
Joe Theismann played in an era, folks, where you had 3-a-days. I was a little bit involved with those 3-a-days back then. So let me get this right. Joe played in the era where you had 6 exhibition games and you had 3-a-days back in the day. So again, we'll continue more with our friend Joe Theismann. Real quick, Joe, 30 seconds here, though. Jaden Daniels, his ceiling. What do you think of his ceiling?
I'm excited for him. I think he's going to have a great comeback year. The offense is going to be a little bit more protective of him, and I think he's going to really, really do well.
Absolutely, man. I look forward to talking more about Jaden Daniels, too. And Adam Peters, and also the National Football League's draft. It's going to be next Thursday, and there is nothing like getting that opportunity to have somebody call you and say, how'd you like to become part of the National Football League? So we're going to talk more with Joe Theismann and get his thoughts on that. And also, we're going to go into the NFC East, and we will talk Cowboys. We'll talk Dak. I want to get his thoughts also on Sam Darnold and what Sam Darnold did this past year. He's a guy that was on 6 different football teams, and he ends up going on and winning himself a Super Bowl. Incredible. More with Joe Theismann. We will talk with our friend and get his comments on that. And plus, I will ask him also November 7th, Notre Dame and Miami. We will do that next. Keep it right here on SportsGrid.
I know you didn't. Talk.
I'm innocent. Got the wrong guy. It wasn't me. I didn't do anything. Okay, it was me. I did it.
Bringing an owl to an interrogation? That's a power move.
Every time.
Yeah.
Hiring America's largest injury law firm for your injury? That's also a power move. Morgan & Morgan, America's largest injury law firm.
How much do you think tanking is hurting the NBA right now, too, and what we're seeing, like we saw with that Jazz and Orlando game a week ago? How much do you think that's hurting the game?
I can't wait until professional sports in the United States adopts a European model, especially like a Premier League model, and they start doing relegation. The day you start doing relegation, everything changes. Everything will change.
Outspoken with Dan Sileo, only on SportsGrid.
Well, I ended up adding this since our show started here, Rohit, but his points prop tonight at 20.5 is the same number from the Iowa State game. That's a bit of a mistake, right? When we consider the gap in opponents here. I think Peterson specifically steps up. He needs to. I think he kind of owes this team a great performance.
Game time decisions, only on SportsGrid.
Class is in session. Today, let's talk about the teaser. A teaser is a multi-leg bet where you shift the point spread in your favor. You get better numbers, but every selection has to win. It doesn't matter what you bet if you don't have the insights. Tune into SportsGrid and get ahead of the class.
I know that Florida lost at home to Auburn, and it's a real thing that happened. So you can't strike it from the record. But if you did, I think Florida's looked like the best team in college basketball for about 2 months. And I think there are a bunch of results that suggest that.
College basketball today, only on SportsGrid.
All right, we are talking baseball with Joe Theismann here. You got to comment on Ohtani. You think Shohei Ohtani wants to win the Cy Young Award and put that trophy
Absolutely.
right next to one of those MVPs, huh?
Absolutely. The thing is he has the ability to accomplish both, but to watch him pitch healthy, I mean, just his size, his speed, the variance in his delivery, the way, the pitches that he has, the speed he throws at, the placement of the ball. I'm a huge baseball fan as it was because I got drafted by the Twins many, many years ago. But I watched Shohei Ohtani play baseball, and it's to me like watching Steph Curry play basketball. We are in a time right now in history in sports where we are seeing unbelievable women in basketball, incredible athletes in baseball, incredible athletes in football, incredible athletes in basketball. I mean, people, besides the games and the rules changing the way they are, the way these athletes perform is just absolutely amazing. And I look at Shohei and I think that is truly a generational individual. And I believe his whole heart, now that he's healthy again, that Cy Young is something that would really, really mean a lot to him. And I think the way the Dodgers will do it is with the Dodger lineup, because I've been studying those guys forever, you don't really need him all the time in the lineup. You've got people that can make up. Your first 5 hitters, even if he's not in there, are still going to give you pressure. And then you look at the back end, and they're still going to produce. So I think it's a very interesting balancing act, but there's no question Shohei absolutely, I think, wants that Cy Young.
Joe, do you think he's the greatest baseball player of all time? You remember something with Ruth. When Ruth was first with the Red Sox, he was a starting pitching, and they started playing him later in his time there in Boston, where he hit 29, then he hit 54 there. But they never really put it together. This guy's doing this at the same time. You think this guy's the greatest baseball player we've ever seen?
Dan, it's a great question that is unanswerable simply because you're comparing different times, different eras, different bats, different balls, different stadiums. It's like saying, who's the greatest football player? Who's the greatest this? Who's the greatest that? I think in football, you have to break it down into 20-year increments because the game has changed. Remember, I played when there were 14 games. Now there's 16. And then now soon there's going to be, 18. Or 17 games. There was 16. Now there's 17. How can you compare statistics and what someone has accomplished in that short a period of time? How many games were played back when Ruth played? And that has to be taken into consideration. He's certainly the greatest player we've ever seen in the quote unquote the modern era. And probably how far you want to go back is something you want to arbitrarily pick a time. That's okay. But he's certainly the greatest I've ever seen.
Your passion for Notre Dame, obviously, because you were there and you won so much with Coach Parsegian. Marcus Freeman and the job that he has done taking over for Brian Kelly. How impressed have you been with the recruits? How impressed have you been with, again, Joe, I agree with you. We talked before about this. I think Notre Dame got job not going in to the college football playoff last year. I would have loved to have seen Miami and them play again in the playoff. But the job that Freeman has done as coach there in South Bend for you has been what?
It's a delight, a thrill, a wonderment. I think he has created a culture there with those players at the university that is so special. I'm so glad he decided to stay and continue to coach at the University of Notre Dame. It's certainly a win-win for us, and I think it's a win-win for him because of the person he is. He's developing young men, and he's building a heck of a football program. He has built a heck of a football program in a short period of time. The legacy that he's creating is incredible. And as far as last year goes, my problem was the timing of the selection to not have Notre Dame participate in the college football championships. Alabama did not belong. Miami, if Miami and Notre Dame went, no problem. The fact that Miami went and they made such a late decision, that was a little bit of an issue. But the fact that you'd have a 3-loss team get in, and Alabama proved that they didn't belong to be there. So, all things went well, but it did change something. It created a scenario. I believe that if Notre Dame is in the top 12 next year, they will sort of get an automatic bid to the championship. So
absolutely,
maybe something good came out of this mess that we saw in the college selection committee last year. But the other thing, Dan, that's so exciting is Notre Dame and Villanova are going to play, I believe, in Rome this year, coming up. Obviously, the Pope is a Chicago guy. I guess I feel so bad calling the Pope a guy. Sorry, I apologize. But I mean, he's a Villanova grad. I think it's exciting that Notre Dame is going to be able to do, and Villanova are going to be able to do that, I believe. And so, being a part of the Notre Dame family is such a great honor.
Absolutely. And I think you call him a guy because he's a White Sox fan. I mean, if you're a White Sox fan, I guess you're a guy there.
I guess I could do that then, yeah.
I think there's going to be a lot of holy water going around there in Rome there between Nova and Notre Dame there. Hey, real quick here, the relationship with Jalen Hurts and the Eagles. How wild is that now that you're talking about potentially the Eagles saying that this could be this is a prove-it year for Hurts, a guy who's been to the Super Bowl 2 times and won one? Joe, what's your takeaway? What's going on in Philly?
It's a bunch of malarkey. Jalen plays really well. Dan, you've heard me say this 1,000 times. The quarterback position is the single most dependent position on the field. You didn't have Saquon running like he did a year before. You didn't have the support there. The defense wasn't what it was a year before. There's no question. The last 2 years, the defensive lines have won Super Bowls. I mean, that's basically it. You look at Seattle's, you look at Philadelphia's. It's those 4 guys up front and the scheme that was used and the occasional blitzing. To me, it's the quarterback position depends so much on what's around him. Jalen's going to be fine in Philadelphia. I have no doubt about it. What's interesting, and to me, the most interesting quarterback situation, there's 2. Will Aaron Rodgers be in Pittsburgh, and what will Kevin O'Connell do with Kyler Murray in Minnesota? That, to me, is going to be something really to watch as we look forward to this coming season.
No doubt about it there, especially after what we saw, what went on in Seattle, Joe. I mean, will that be the second reclamation project up there in Minnesota if they could turn that kid back around again like he did his first couple of years when he was in Arizona? I mean, he was an electric ball player there, too. So, without a doubt, Joe, I appreciate you. Please, we've got to do this again. You know what? Next time I'm going to get you on, I'm going to talk baseball. We're just going to sit and do a baseball segment, and we're going to talk some Major League Baseball with you next. Joe, thank you, my friend. Sileo says we'll do that next. You keep it right here on SportsGrid. All right, we are in a great era right now in sports. I got to tell you, the international player is now starting to take over the landscape of professional sports. Think about this, what we have going on. We just come off of the Masters with Rory McIlroy winning back-to-back Masters, and he becomes just the fourth player ever to do that, and he's arguably the greatest European player of all time. You want to put him next to Nick Faldo, 6 major championships. The difference here with Rory is that Rory is a Grand Slam winner, one of a very few and a handful that have gone on to win the career Grand Slam. How about the fact that we just got through talking about with Joe Theismann, Shohei Ohtani? Have we ever seen an athlete like this before in the history of sports? You're talking about a modern-day Babe Ruth. Here's a guy that's pitching, throwing 103 miles an hour, and hits you 50 bombs and also steals you 50 bases. We are in a different era in sports that I've never seen before. How about Wemby? Wemby looks like a junior version of Chamberlain, arguably the best defender and also one of the top scorers in the NBA. Look at what he's done and the impact that he's had on the San Antonio Spurs. How about the Joker? How about Luka? Look at all these guys, and let's not forget, truly one of the greatest hockey players of all time, Alexander Ovechkin. Ovechkin right now is the greatest goal scorer in the history of the NHL. And you say that with all due respect to Wayne Gretzky, who had 92 goals one season, one of the greatest scorers, if not the greatest player in the history of the sport. I'm more apt to say Bobby Orr. I think Orr was the greatest hockey player, but look at all these great international players. Stephen A. Smith said something years ago that I completely disagree with. He said that Shohei Ohtani can never be the face of Major League Baseball because he is an international player. Well, that has changed. Think about what the biggest impact on is international sports. You know what it's been? How about the original Dream Team? Remember what David Stern said, that he wanted to plant the flag of the NBA in Europe, and he wanted to have more of an influx of international players. Well, you got it, brother. Look at the NBA today. The greatest players in the sport are international players. Take a look at when you go to the Olympics. When you watch LA 28 in a couple of years, what's going to dominate it? The Americans winning the gold medal? That's not going to be a slam dunk like it was back with the original Dream Team. We have so many great international players now. And for me, the greatest international athlete of all time has to be Shohei Ohtani. I've never seen anything like this. It's appointment-setting television. He gets on the hill. The other night, he had 10 Ks. The night before that, he had 6 strikeouts. And I happen to agree with all. I think he wants to put that trophy next to that mantle with all those MVP awards. Who would have ever thought in your lifetime you'd be talking about one of the greatest home run hitters of all time in baseball history winning a Cy Young? I mean, Shohei Ohtani is a special player. Wemby is a special player. Hell, Giannis is a special player. The international athlete is now starting to dominate the American landscape. Shohei Ohtani is appointment setting. Wemby is appointment setting. Alexander Ovechkin in his 40s, his early 40s, with 32 goals. He was asked the question the other day, are you going to come back and play another season? Why wouldn't he? He's still one of the greatest players in the NHL today. How in God's name don't you look at all these international players and look and say, look at Luka. Now, we'll see what Luka does with the Lakers this year because he's been injured a little bit. We'll see what they do as they're in the Western Conference, if they're going to be able to run and be able to do anything against OKC. But no doubt about it, Rory McIlroy, what a great performance that was at Augusta. I mean, Rory now has taken the baton from Tiger. I didn't miss Phil. I didn't miss Tiger at the Augusta National. Rory McIlroy now, you're starting and caught me rooting for him this past Sunday. I thought it was a great performance. The record ratings show that almost 20 million people tuned in to watch the final round of the Masters. Nobody really made a true run, including Scottie Scheffler. Rory McIlroy has put himself into conversation. Gary Player's arguably still, in my opinion, the greatest international golfer of all time. But the greatest European golfer with Nick Faldo has to be Rory. We're rooting now for international athletes. We've not seen this before. And most of the time, Americans do not root for international athletes. We are looking at a difference and a game-changing time in sports. I go back to Ohtani and I say it again. I've never seen anything like Shohei Ohtani, and I'm not sure we will ever see. This is a generational moment. Barry Bonds is the greatest left-hand hitter in my lifetime. Now, look, if you're a little older, you'll say Mays was the greatest. You'll say Henry Aaron was the greatest baseball player of all time. You can make the comment, like I said, Barry Bonds, 7 Gold Gloves, 7 MVPs. Truly one of the greatest of all time. But what we're watching right now is maybe the greatest athlete in the history of Major League Baseball in Shohei Ohtani. It's appointment setting television. All right, we're going to switch gears, and one of my friends, one of the great broadcasters in sports, Brad Nessler's next, right here on SportsGrid. All right, welcome to hour 2 here on Outspoken here on SportsGrid. And I've got something here I want to show people before we bring in our friend Brad Nessler here. Look at this here. So these are 2 national championship rings here. And let me bring in one of the great voices of college sports. That is Brad Nessler. Now, Brad, these 2 rings here, how hard do you think it is? And do you think it's harder right now to win a national championship in college football than it was back, say, in my time, back in the 80s and 90s?
Tough either time, Dan. I mean, you built teams back when you played, and you were there for, I know you played both Maryland and Miami, but for the most part, everybody stayed 3 years, kind of grew up together, didn't transfer, and if you did, you sat out a year. And so at that time, I think the cohesiveness of teams was probably stronger than it is now. And then you turn around and see what Indiana did in the last 2 years, and you go, well, that theory's out the window, because you get the right people and the right culture and the right coach, and you can do what the Hoosiers did. But, man, it's tough. I mean, I live in Georgia, and Georgia fans are so disgruntled that Georgia didn't win another national championship. That's just what it's supposed to be every year. And when you win 2 of them like Kirby has, you set pretty high, and anything below that's no good. And, they go on, they win the SEC championship. They're in the playoff, but they lose to Ole Miss, in the fourth quarter. And, with friends last night at the local dive, and they're still crying and whining about that. I mean, it's really tough to win, whether it's the 80s or 2025. It's tough to put a team together and go through the gauntlet you have to go through. Back in your day, played 12 games, including your bowl game maybe, and the bowl game was you got picked, and you got put in there, and you had to beat the next best team because that's how that worked back in the Orange Bowl days and wherever. Now you can win 16 games, man. It's like being in the NFL. So a lot longer season and a tough haul either way.
Absolutely. Do you think college sports is in a good place right now, Brad?
Whew. It's a loaded question because I'm old school, and I liked it the way it was. I understand paying the kids. I think that's great. I have no qualms with the guys getting whatever they can make because, back when I was doing the video games, we couldn't even have the names of the kids on the back of the jerseys in the EA Sports game. We had to have a guy that looked like Tim Tebow's name on the back, and I said, well, this is off. And we got about 3 years into making that, and all of a sudden Ed O'Bannon says, hey, wait a minute, that's me in the video game, and I'm not making a cent off this. So, and that was the end of the video games for a few years until people NIL came around. It's just so different. Like, I think going back to what I said about building a team, I used to like the fact that I got to know the kids. I mean, you were talking about Jalen Hurts earlier, and I got to know Jalen at Alabama because he was there long enough that I did enough of his games that I thought I knew him, and I had his cell phone number. And then he goes to Oklahoma and then goes to the Eagles and wins the Super Bowl. I just love that fact and that aspect of it. And now when I go to meetings or go to do games, I know that's probably the only time I'm going to see that kid, unless we do 4 or 5 games in one season of that team like I did with Oregon last year. So, I mean, you kind of got to know the team a little bit better that way. But, at Ohio State, I got to know James Laurinaitis' dad, Joe, who was one of the Road Warriors, and so I'd go to games and I'd hang out and have a beer with Joe, God rest his soul, the night before the game. And then his kid plays linebacker and goes on to be an All-American. So I love that kind of family thing. I don't get that vibe right now. Do a basketball game, it's 5 guys I'd never seen. And I just did, Wisconsin last year, and all of a sudden there's 5 new guys. Or Michigan, I do them last year, and now there's 5 new guys. And little asterisk next to my notes about how many other schools they played for. I had some guys this year that were on their 4th school. I was like, okay, I guess I've seen them play before, but they're in a different uniform. So it's a long-winded question and not a very good answer for you, but I kind of like the more of the family atmosphere and guys being around 3 or 4 years like the old days. But I get it. Times have changed, man.
What'd you make of Michigan having 5 transfers on the floor at one time to win the national title? Do you think that's good for college basketball and college sports?
I think it's good for Dusty May's checking account. I know that much. No, I mean, that's what coaches nowadays kind of are. It's they don't have them around very long, so you better be able to coach them up and make it a cohesive unit. I think it's a lot easier doing basketball and football for sure. You get 5 guys like they had, you got a good chance of winning 35 games or whatever. Can't do that with a football team unless you got a really good quarterback like Indiana's had the last 2 years. That helps. But you got to have that spot to be able to do it in football.
So the folks at Alabama are saying this. If you don't have $50 million on the table right now, Brad, you're not going to be competitive in trying to win a national championship. You think there's got to be a moment right now where somebody comes to the front? Maybe it's Saban, maybe it's somebody like that. Will we ever see a salary cap, or will we ever see like something like the NFL where we're getting closer to that, or is that just too off the rails?
I don't know, Dan. They can't put the tweet back in the whistle. They let this thing happen.
Yeah.
And now they're trying to, get somebody, help us out, Congress, help us out, Mr. President, whatever. Good luck with that. I don't care what Trump signs. That's not going to hold water either, because the judge is just going to go. Some kids are going to sue and say, to hell with you. I'm going to play. I'm going to transfer and I'm going to play this year. I'm not waiting. I'm not doing a one transfer. That won't hold water either. $50 million. I bet you better have half that much for sure. Right now. I mean, I have a really good friend whose son played 1 year at Charlotte at Ole Miss, and he didn't start the entirety of either season. We gave him $800. Fine. I mean, this is nuts. It's totally nuts. You get the right guys, you got to pay a lot of money. And, quarterbacks going right. The Duke quarterback, I had him in the bowl game last year, looked me right in the eye and said, I'm coming back to Duke next year. And I looked at Jenny Dell and I winked at her and I was like, he's full of crap. He's going someplace else if he gets a shot like Miami. Here we go. Money talks,
I
baby.
tell you what, absolutely, Brad. I'll tell you this. Mario called me and said that he goes, "What do you think of the Duke quarterback?" I go, "Well, how much is he?" He goes, "He's 4.5." I go, 4.5. How about
Need 6.
5 million? Oh, you need 6? Hey, Brad, how about this? Most of these kids nowadays that get those, contracts in college, when you go to the NFL, if you're not a first round draft choice, you're taking a pay cut when you go to the NFL. Is that why? And one of the reasons that maybe kids are staying in college longer now is because they are making more economic money.
No doubt about it. Kids that are marginal and going to be a second round draft choice in the NBA or a free agent or whatever, or maybe have to play in Europe. If you're a really good line or something and you're a 15-point, 10 rebound type guy, stay in school until you're sure you're a lottery pick or whatever. That's why more guys are hanging around, wanting to hang around and suing to hang around, like the Ole Miss quarterback. He's making a great move. He's making a lot more money than he's going to make in the NFL, and he might never make that kind of money in the NFL.
Absolutely. All right, we're going to do this here with our friends at Morgan & Morgan, the number one injury law firm in all of America for a reason, folks. It's because they win. There is no firm like Morgan & Morgan with over $30 billion recovered. I tell you about the family in Pennsylvania that was initially offered $650K. They ended up getting nearly $30 million in settlement. How about the family in Florida that was initially offered $350,000? They got nearly $12 million in settlement. Easiest decision you ever make in your life. Family owned, family run, no company like it. Go to forthepeople.com/big sales or pound law 529. That's forthepeople.com/big sales or pound law 529. And do me a favor, you tell them Big Sales sent you. We come back out of the timeout. We're going to talk to Brad Nessler a little more about the college basketball tournament and also the expansion potentially of the college football playoff. Again, last year, we just had Joe Theismann on. Joe Theismann thought Notre Dame, and I did too. I thought Notre Dame should have been in the college playoff. Should Tulane and also James Madison have been in the playoff? You have one group over here where you have a different set of rules, and over here you got a different set of standards to try to get everybody involved. Is that for legality reasons? I'm going to talk to Brad Nessler a little bit more on that. Again, I agree with Brad on this point here. Paying the kids, it's all good. Needs to be some guardrails on this. More with Brad Nessler next, right here on SportsGrid.
By setting the play-in up like this, what the NBA is letting everybody know is that the back-to-backs are completely unacceptable and the worst thing about their schedule. And these fools,
now they give them
guys to
3
play.
days off for one game. Yeah.
They're so scared of back-to-backs. They go, not even in the play-in could we dream of giving anybody a back-to-back.
Game time decisions only on SportsGrid.
It looks like Rory McIlroy and Scotty Scheffler have replaced Tiger Woods and Phil Mickelson as must-see golf TV. 14 million people on average watch the Masters on Sunday on CBS. That's not including Paramount Plus. It's up 8% from last year, and it just about tied what was probably the best Masters Sunday performance. That was in 2015 when Jordan Spieth won it.
Newswire. Only on SportsGrid.
We may be talking about this as one of the best divisions in baseball. It's not generally something we do. But if the Pirates just hold court and the Reds just hold court and the Cubs are in this thing, the Brewers are going to be there in the end too. I mean, that's 4 of the 5 teams. I do think the Cardinals are going to push back at some point. They'll fall back a little bit. But I got 4 teams with a possibility of making the postseason here, Donnie.
Pro Baseball Today, only on SportsGrid.
Whatever your next job is, the first 24 hours, it's going to be a rehashing of this. Mm-hmm. You have to suck that up. You can't avoid that. Like, I haven't been in prison in 7 years.
But people do
and
bring it
every
up.
story written about me still references the fact that I got in trouble.
Right.
So, unfortunately, you have to live with that the rest of your professional career.
The Craig Carton Show, only on SportsGrid.
All right, truly one of the great broadcasters of all time, our friend Brad Nessler joins us now. Brad, let me start this off here, this second segment here with this. Do you believe that there's too much control by the television networks when it comes to selecting these college football teams to the tournament? And the reason I position it this way is that, listen, Fox, ABC, CBS, plus ESPN. Boy, I'll tell you, getting the brands in seems to be a major issue right now for those teams who want to get people like Notre Dame in. Too much control with the television networks and not really putting the right teams into the playoff. Do you think there's too much control there or not?
I don't know. I'm not sure if it's the TV thing. You know, obviously you want to see Notre Dame because they draw big numbers. You know, even if they're not as good as, you know, past seasons, they were 11-0, whatever. People still watch Notre Dame, and you know that's why if we get a chance at CBS to do as a game, we take it. 2 years ago, I think it was 60. I think it was real thrillers, but it still drew rating. You know, so yeah, ratings is a big part of it. But you know, it's a playoff, and you know, I don't begrudge those guys what they come up with. I don't know that they necessarily watch every play of every game like they claim. I don't think that's possible, but you know, they're the ones that are pulling the strings right now more than TV, I think.
Do you like the way the committee selects teams? And do you think a team like James Madison and Tulane, you got a different set of standards, Brad, for those teams, those non-Power 5, and then you sit around and you're trying to tell me you're putting the best college football teams in the 12-team playoff. Tulane and James Madison are not two of the best teams in the country. Where's your take on this?
I think they're trying to make it a little bit more like the NCAA basketball tournament, and that a Cinderella can somehow emerge. And it's probably never going to happen. It's going to take a perfect game by one of those kind of teams against a team that's, you know, a Power 5 team, I think, to ever get to the next level until somebody wins one of those games. And then you can make the argument, hey, they belong, Tulane belonged, James Madison belonged. No, they probably didn't belong. I like the fact that, you know, you're going to give those guys a crack at it and expand to 16 teams, you know, to have a crack at it, try to get through the first round of the playoffs, but be the same 10 teams every year. They're going to win the national championship, if you ask me. Now, people would say, yeah, well, you didn't say that about Indiana 2 years ago. Okay, that's true. But for the most part, you know, it's going to be Alabama, and Texas, and you list Miami and whoever. It's always going to be the top rungs of those teams, and that's the way it's going to be unless they, when they expand, they will expand. I don't know if it's going to go past 16. I think the 24 ideas, and I shouldn't say this because I think it's Tony Petitti's idea, and he's a former CBS guy, and I'm a Big Ten guy now. But I don't think 24 that's too many, I think. I mean, what we need to do is we need to start the season a week earlier, and we need to have the national championship like right around New Year's, like it used to be. Get rid of the conference championships out the window. You don't have to wait 28 days in between games to play. You can play the next week unless you get a first round bye. There's so many ways they could make the situation a lot better on everybody and still expand. So and unless they come up with a plan like that, expansion's not going to work that well either.
How about the college basketball tournament? Do you want to see it expand from 68? Maybe the play-in's a little more, or do you like it where it is? Or again, are we getting over the board here? Are we getting over the line here with the amount of teams that we're going to invite in? I mean, there was even a question of Miami of Ohio. I mean, you know, you go 32-0, and there's a question whether or not they belong in. So you tell me, I mean, Brad, do you think they should expand the college basketball tournament?
I think they could go maybe 4 more teams, but I think just blowing it up and, you know, going up to 78, I don't think you need to do that. I think 4 more teams, and like you said, maybe 1 extra day of play-in. They got to figure that out too, because they had Texas in the first 4, and then they had to travel all the way out to where I was in Portland. and they didn't even have a dis. I mean, they got to Portland at 4 o'clock in the morning or whatever, and they came to shoot around at 11, and they had to play the next day. They got some there too on just how they shoot around, and I think we're anything that if you got 78, the 79th team is going to be complaining that they should have been in. And should have Miami of Ohio? Yeah, Miami should have been. I was working with Wally Zerbiak. What are you, crazy? Of course Miami should have been in there. He was their All-American 20 yeah, but, like I had High Point. I had High Point against Wisconsin. Who picked High Point to be Wisconsin in their bracket? Raise your hand. Okay, I see nobody did. But it was an awesome game. And, that was probably the most fun I've had doing a college basketball game in a while. And it probably kept my energy that I had to do after that on the same day. But, I mean, that's awesome. When you got a team like that that's, 15 seed or whatever, and a major Big Ten team that was, rolling in really with a good record. That part's fun. So that's part I love about basketball tournament. And so will they ever have that in football? I don't know. Maybe on a given day, somebody can beat a Power 5 team, but not usually.
Where do you see college sports in 2 years? Do you think we're going to eventually get to the super conference where there's going to be just 2 conferences and maybe an outlier conference where you have places like San Diego State, San Jose State? Are we rolling towards that now, Brad?
I thought that a couple years ago, Dan. I don't know if I still see that because I don't think the 2 biggest conferences get along well enough. I mean, Tony Petitti and Greg Sankey, they don't see eye to eye on anything. And I think until the Big Ten and the SEC say, okay, we got to get married here, guys, then I think it could happen. And then I think you'd have maybe the top 50 teams in the country, and that's called the Power 50 or something. And then everybody else has their own playoffs or something. But I think it's conceivable that, that could happen. I just don't think the powers that be get along well enough to do it right now. We'll see.
Hey, 30 seconds, the transfer portal. Do you think there needs to be guardrails on how many times you can transfer? Or do you think that'll be a tough fight in court?
That'll be a tough fight in court, for sure. And I think, what Trump's trying to do, I don't think it'll hold water at all. I think it's nice. You can say, I got my Sharpie out. I'm going to do something here. And that's fine. I just don't think it'll work. I don't think it'll work, man. But, let them transfer, I guess. I don't know. Do they still go to class? I'm not sure. Did you go to class, by the way?
No comment. No, class. I had it. Hey, Brad, thank you so much. I appreciate you. World Cup, already a train wreck. We'll hit on it next right here on SportsGrid.
By setting the play-in up like this, what the NBA is letting everybody know is that the back-to-backs are completely unacceptable and the worst thing about their schedule. And these fools,
now they give them
guys to
3
play.
days off for one game. Yeah.
They're so scared of back-to-backs. They go, not even in the play-in could we dream of giving anybody a back-to-back.
Game time decisions only on SportsGrid.
It looks like Rory McIlroy and Scottie Scheffler have replaced Tiger Woods and Phil Mickelson as must-see golf TV. 14 million people on average watch the Masters on Sunday on CBS. That's not including Paramount Plus. It's up 8% from last year, and it just about tied what was probably the best Masters Sunday performance. That was in 2015 when Jordan Spieth won it.
Newswire. Only on SportsGrid.
We may be talking about this as one of the best divisions in baseball. It's not generally something we do. But if the Pirates just hold court and the Reds just hold court and the Cubs are in this thing, the Brewers are going to be there in the end too. I mean, that's 4 of the 5 teams. I do think the Cardinals are going to push back at some point, to fall back a little bit. But I got 4 teams with a possibility of making the postseason here, Donnie.
Pro Baseball Today, only on SportsGrid.
Whatever your next job is, the first 24 hours, it's going to be a rehashing of this. Mm-hmm. You have to suck that up. You can't avoid that. Like, I haven't been in prison in 7 years.
But people do bring it up.
And every story written about me still references the fact that I got in trouble.
Right.
So, unfortunately, You have to live with that the rest of your professional career.
The Craig Carton Show. Only on SportsGrid.
Okay, so you're here with the expert on World Cup soccer here, Dan Sileo. Not. So, again, I am a huge fan of sporting events. So this coming summer, we got the World Cup. One of my favorite things that's going to go on this coming summer will be all these so-called experts pretending that they're soccer experts, and they're not. However, I'll tell you what I do love doing. I love watching major events like the Olympics and the World Cup. Gives fans an opportunity to watch some of the greatest sporting events of all time. We get a chance to sit back and get involved with the greatest tournament in the history of the world. That's World Cup. And now that it's in America, you got it, folks. What do we do here in America? We take advantage of our fans. Check this out. So if you want to go from Penn Station down to MetLife and you want to go watch yourself a game in the World Cup, $12.50 it costs you to get down there normally. You got it. $100 and north of $100 to go from Penn Station down to MetLife and back just to watch a soccer game. Look at $12.90 round trip. It is now a C note for you to get down there and watch a soccer game. Here's the next one here in Boston. I love this one here too. So if you want to get a ride to go up to Gillette where they're going to hold some of the events, $20 usually takes you to get to Gillette Stadium, right? Do you want to go there, watch yourself a Patriots game? Nope. World Cup, it is now $80 for you to go there and watch yourself a game. So how about this? So tell me this. If you're a sports fan, I've got the best seat on the planet. You know where that is? That's in my house. And sitting there with my Coronas. I am not in any way going to be involved in any way whatsoever. Take a look at what sports is now in America today with your cable bill. You know, you're looking at just to watch regular NFL football during the holidays. NFL came out a couple days ago and said that, hey, we give you 87% of the games, and we give you that for free. Yeah, but those other 13 during the holidays and during the NFL playoffs are now going to charge app football, which means you got to pay for Prime Video, you got to pay for Netflix, you got to pay for Peacock, and you got to pay now for Paramount Plus. You're adding an additional $400 just to be able to watch your favorite NFL football team if they so make the playoffs. World Cup, same way. This is an event that was brought here to America for fans to have a great time, to be able to show at some of these facilities this coming summer. I say this all the time about soccer in America. Soccer in America, if it's not for the World Cup, it's lost. MLS, nobody knows what's going on with the MLS. I can't even tell you when that season starts. I have no idea. And when you get a chance to inundate the American public with World Cup soccer, what do? You gouge them at the pumps. I mean, you can't even go to a sporting event. Look at parking when you go to an NFL game. $100 to park your car when you go to an NFL football game. So the World Cup, again, charging. This is exactly what sports leagues do. This is not just something that the World Cup is doing. This is every sports league. Major League Baseball, the NBA. Look at the NBA and their ticket prices and what it costs to go. You can't go to sporting events. Going to sporting events in today's landscape, these people don't want you going to games. They want you sitting at your television set because that's where the money is. You know, the NFL owners make over $600 million a year per 32 teams on TV alone. You think they care whether or not you go to these games? Let me tell you something else the National Football League owner has done. You see these World Cup games? And you see the Mauer family, what they have with MetLife? You built that stadium for them to gouge you. They gouge you at the pump. You got 10 NFL football games going on yearly. The National Football League is in the stadium business. And this is what it's all about. Gouging you, the fan. I mean, folks, this is what sports is. So I'm going to sit at home this summer watching World Cup soccer, and I'll be watching and rooting on Argentina. And I'll be going, go Messi, because the Americans will get knocked out in the opening round. So I'll have to root for somebody. And I don't like rooting for 15th place. I mean, so I'll be able to sit in my television right there with my TV in front of me, my Corona in front of me there, and I'll pretend when I come on SportsGrid here on Outspoken that I'm some sort of pseudo soccer expert. Congratulations, guys. You can't even go to a game any longer because they're gouging you at the pumps. A $12.50 ticket now costs you $100 to get to MetLife. 16W, baby. Round trip is now $100. Okay. All right. We're going to switch gears and we're going to drop a bunt and we are going to talk some Major League Baseball. Almost 20 games into the season. What does Bob Nightengale think of the start of the season? We'll do that next right here on SportsGrid.
By setting the play-in up like this, what the NBA is letting everybody know is that the back-to-backs are completely unacceptable and the worst thing about their schedule. And these fools,
now they give them
guys to
3
play.
days off for one
okay.
game. Yeah.
They're so scared of back-to-backs. They go, not even in the play-in could we dream of giving anybody a back-to-back.
Game time decisions only on SportsGrid.
It looks like Rory McIlroy and Scotty Scheffler have replaced Tiger Woods and Phil Mickelson as must-see golf TV. 14 million people on average watch the Masters on Sunday on CBS. That's not including Paramount Plus. It's up 8% from last year, and it just about tied what was probably the best Masters Sunday performance. That was in 2015 when Jordan Spieth won it.
Newswire. Only on SportsGrid.
We may be talking about this as one of the best divisions in baseball. It's not generally something we do, but if the Pirates just hold court and the Reds just hold court and the Cubs are in this thing, the Brewers are going to be there in the end too. I mean, that's 4 of the 5 teams. I do think the Cardinals are going to push back at some point. They'll fall back a little bit, but I got 4 teams with a possibility of making the postseason here, Donnie.
Pro Baseball Today, only on SportsGrid.
Whatever your next job is, the first 24 hours, it's going to be a rehashing of this. You have to suck that up. You can't avoid that. Like, I haven't been in prison in 7 years.
But people do
and
bring it
every
up.
story written about me still references the fact that I got in trouble.
Right.
So, unfortunately, you have to live with that the rest of your professional career.
The Craig Carton Show, only on SportsGrid.
All right, I love talking Major League Baseball with my friend. He is my go-to man from USA Today, Bob Nightengale. He joins us right now. We were doing this before he came on, and I was talking to him about his greatest pieces of memorabilia that he has there at his home there, and he said that he has a piece with Vince Scully and Sandy Koufax. I got to tell you a story, Bob. So Tommy Lasorda told me this. They were getting ready for one of the World Series with the Yankees back in the day. It may have been the 81 series. And Koufax was at Dodger Town, and they were getting him ready for the World Series. And Steve Garvey actually told me this as well. So he's pitching batting practice to him. And finally, Garvey had to go over to Lasorda and say this. Tommy, can you tell him to slow it down a little bit? Nobody can hit. He was 47 years old, Bob. Thanks for doing this, Bob. One of the greatest pitchers of all time, Sandy Koufax.
Yeah, he's the second oldest living Hall of Famer now. I mean, I think he's 90, 91 years old. He still looks great. I mean, he could pass for in his 40s for easily. So, yeah, great guy, and people still go crazy in Cooperstown every summer when he shows up.
Well, let me ask you this. 167 victories. Does that really tell you, again, his total dominance that he had over a short period of time? Because if you look at his numbers, he's not a 200-game winner, but that was such a dominant time for him when he was in the World Series, winning those MVP awards. Maybe one of the greatest short period time players in baseball history.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, he got voted in the Hall of Fame first ballot, and this is during a time when getting in was a lot harder. You wanted 200 wins, if not 300 wins. So yeah, it just shows how dominant he was, and he could have hung on. He could have had, some kind of surgery, and and still pitched. But they didn't have the advanced Tommy John surgery like you do now. Or else he, probably would have pitched another 10 years.
Bob, let's get into the amazings. What's going on with the amazings? I mean, the Mets right now, if you listen to New York radio, I mean, the sky is falling right now. A lot of concern right now with the New York Mets.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, you go back to last June 13th. I think they're on a pace to lose 100 games. They've been terrible for a while. It's embarrassing. I mean, their payroll is $40 million more than the Dodgers. Spent more money than the Dodgers the last 5 years and got nothing to show for it. So, yeah, they look brutal. I'm not saying it's Carlos Mendoza's fault. They've been backing him and everything else. But someone's going to have to pay the price here if things don't turn around quickly. But, yeah, they're an absolute mess. And, hey, when you have a $350 million payroll and you have the same records as the Colorado Rockies, something's wrong.
So is this worse than the 93 Mets?
It may be. Certainly a lot more money being spent. And so, yeah, but that was a famous, the worst team money can buy. But this is, I think, much worse situation because you got guys, making, 30, 40, $70 million a year. And look what you're getting, absolutely nothing. Two big holes in rotation with Senga and Peterson. Lindor has struggled. Soto's on the injured list. Bichette hasn't done anything. You wonder if Bichette will even stay around after this year, which means they threw $47 million down the drain for nothing.
You think that was a mistake, him not taking that Phillies deal and instead going to New York and going to Queens? You think that was, if they had to do that all over again, that Stearns would look at that and say that they'd like to have a mulligan on that?
Yeah, they just pivoted, remember, because they thought they're going to get Kyle Tucker. And so they just quickly pivoted, knew that the Phillies were about to sign him. And if you're the Phillies, just say, okay, we'll grab you a year from now when you're a free agent. They need to shake things up themselves. They're not playing great baseball. So, but yeah, I mean, for Bichette, you got your $47 million, hit free agency again, and kind of laugh all the way to the bank.
I want to get your takeaways. You're such a great historian. Garrett Anderson, I thought he was really an instrumental part of that Angels team that went on to win that World Series back in the day for the Angels. Just your thoughts, passing away at the age of 53, his impact on that team that would go on and win that World Series.
Yeah, just a steady guy. I mean, they had, Tim Salmon, all those guys, JT Snow, a lot of up-and-coming stars. And he was just that quiet, unassuming superstar. Just seemed effortless at time, making great catches, being productive at the plate. And he played 156 games a year. He averaged for 8 straight years. So, no, just one of the all-time Angel greats, and heartbreaking, be 53 years old and pass away.
Absolutely here. So let's go over to the Braves here. Bob, you feel a little more confident? Listen, it's so early in the season and so young in the year. But one of the things that I remember John Sherrills talking to me about, and I've talked about this with you before, was that one of the benchmarks of that organization was always investing in arms and always investing in defense and going with pitching. Are we seeing that resurgence a little bit here with the Braves in the National League East?
Yeah, it's amazing. And then without 3 starters, without Schwellenbach and Strider, Murphy, the catcher's been hurt. The shortstop Kim has been out all year. Losing a Profar for drug suspension. So here they are. I mean, unbelievable what they've done. And everybody says, okay, what are the Braves doing? How come they're falling apart here? And they just rode the storm. Walt Weiss deserves a lot of credit as their manager.
Absolutely here. So who's Mason Miller? Help me out here who this guy is. I mean, Bob, this guy's got a 0.00 ERA. Now, hey, by the way, if you're Ron Fowler and you're Peter Seidler's family, God rest his soul, I love Peter Seidler, one of the truly great people I've ever met my entire life. Padres got some news yesterday. First and foremost, that story, $3.9 billion, a record sale for the team. And then tell me who Mason Miller is here with the Padres.
Yeah, a stunning purchase price, $3.9 billion for the 30th largest market in America. You're trapped by the Pacific Ocean. Desert is on the other side. LA to the north, Mexico to the south, and unbelievable. I mean, it's sold for $1.5 billion more than the Mets sold for. So yeah, I mean, every owner is doing cartwheels now, saying, "Man, what's our franchise worth?" And also, I think it could have effect on the CBA negotiations. Like, really, are the owners losing money? Or you're not making enough? When you're having a team like this, some for 3.9. And Mason Miller, man, I mean, talking about, I know it's just early, but could have one of the greatest seasons of all time by a reliever. He hasn't given up a run, since last August, Danny. It's unbelievable what he's doing. I think he's faced 29 batters, struck out 20 of them, just making guys look foolish.
Absolutely, man. I mean, from what I understand too, he was supposed to be a starter potentially for the A's, and the A's wanted to make him a starter, and all of a sudden now, here he is as one of the best closers in all of Major League Baseball in the Padres right now. As you said, Bob, at the beginning of the year, one of the things we were talking about was whether or not that the Padres were going to be a player, and you thought maybe that they would take a step back. You think, again, I mean, he's been the reason, and plus they've been getting a little bit better hitting this year, the Padres.
Yeah, they have. I mean, they just lost Nick Pivetta. He's out for months now with the flexor tendon muscle. We'll see what happens. They need another starter. I think they're going to digress here as the year goes on. Maybe the new owners will, let them, hit the trade market and pick up a high-priced guy or something. But yeah, they need another starter here to survive, I think.
Absolutely. We're going to talk more with Bob Nightengale here. I'll tell you what, it is early on the season, but I'll tell you what, there are a lot of teams getting out of the gate, especially the Cubs. And where do the Cubs go? Maybe they need another arm here. We'll talk to our friend from USA Today, the legendary Bob Nightengale. We'll do that next, right here on SportsGrid.
You wouldn't have your ex officiate your wedding.
Do you, Jake? Liar? Cheater? Gaslighter?
So why have anyone but America's largest injury law firm handle your injury case? With over $30 billion recovered for our clients, there's a reason to go big.
Gaslighter, coitus crier, he's got more red flags than a bullfighter's attire.
Morgan & Morgan, America's largest injury law firm.
More with Bob Nightingale from USA Today as we're in the early stages of Major League Baseball here. Let's start with the Cubs here, Bob. I mean, the Cubs out of the gate kind of wobbling a little bit. If you look at everybody, outside of the Dodgers and the Padres and maybe the Central Division, when it comes to baseball in the early part of the season, give me your takeaways on the Cubs right now and where they are. Concerned, any issues with them getting out?
Well, he's sort of worried about that pitching. I mean, Kate Hoare now is, Tommy John surgery, so won't see him again until, end of 2027. The reliever, Palencia, their closer, he's on the injury list right now. Matthew Boyd's on the injury list. So they're surviving, and they're going to rely on their offense. But the pitching's been fine, but it's thin. A little bit like Atlanta, I do think they need to go get another starter to get some help because it's just a thin rotation right now. So we'll see what happens. I mean, no one's running away with anything to NL Central, so they hang around. But I don't think they're nearly as good or deep than I think we envisioned when the season started.
What's going on with the Astros? I mean, not a very good start. And again, like you say, Bob, I mean, we're not going to find out for the first 25 games. And then you get into the All-Star break. Then you wait for the trading deadline to find out what kind of team you're looking at here. But the Astros getting out kind of to a bumpy start here. Why?
Yeah, I mean, just their pitching's been pathetic. The offense has some problems. They've had some, injuries. Josh Hader still, their all-world closer won't be back until late May. But the pitching has just been getting pummeled. Injuries too. So we'll see. And they're lucky Seattle's run the same kind of problem. No one in that AL West is taken off. So I still think they'll be hanging around. But I don't think it's a playoff team. I really don't. So we'll see what happens at the end of the season. Who pays the price? Whether it's the manager, whether it's a GM, or whether it's both of them.
What do you think, and who do you think is the best division? First, we'll do the National League here. What's the best division in baseball you think it'll be this year?
I still got to go back with the AL East. I do think the NL West was that division, and we'll see. We'll see what San Diego does the rest of the year. We'll see if Arizona can play above 500, if the Giants bounce back. So if those things happen, then you say, okay, back to the National League West because of the Dodgers. But that AL East is still powerful. I know the Yankees haven't played like they thought they would. Neither has Boston, neither has Baltimore, and Toronto's been a big disappointment. So I'll still stick with the AL East. But if the National League West teams outside the Dodgers, keep on playing like they are, then they'll go back to NL West.
I'm going to keep asking you this every time we get you on here about the ABS system. Are you getting more comfortable with it? Do you think the umpires are getting more comfortable with this system? The fans seemingly like it a lot. So far, the grade for it for you would be what?
Maybe a B. The thing that drives me crazy is umpires can miss a pitch by like 1/100 of an inch. And, they overturn it and the fans are going crazy. Like, really? You can't swing a bat? You can't have a buffer zone? So they're getting used to the strike zone. It's different. Pitchers would tell you the strike zones are much smaller. It used to be. That's why we're seeing a lot more walks. So I still think we'll have a full ABS system coming to play in about 5 years or so, which I don't think, a lot of players I talk to don't want to see that. They don't want to lose that human element. But, I think it's coming.
The Dodgers, correct me if I'm wrong on this. So the Dodgers spent a year ago, Bob, $515 million to win that World Series by a foot. I mean, that's how much money Andrew Friedman and the Dodgers pushed across the table for them to be able to hold off Toronto. I mean, you see the Dodgers continuing this trend here. I know I'm going to ask you here in a minute about the upcoming work stoppage potentially, but I mean, boy, you got the Dodgers spending that kind of money, and you got a team like the Rays spending 108 on a payroll. I mean, the differences in this sport compared to the NFL, it's so drastic. I mean, how do you fix that if you're Major League Baseball and Rob Manfred?
Well, MLB would like to have a salary cap, or at least salary restrictions to force teams to spend money that don't, and curb the spending of the Mets, Yankees, and Dodgers, of course. That Dodger figure you said that includes luxury tax penalties. They're real payrolls, but like you said, it's under the Mets. But they pay penalties because they can do so. But yeah, you want everybody to have an equal chance. That's why the owners are pushing for this. But I tell you what, I think that Padres sale kind of hurts MLB's stance. Like, wait a minute now, look at a team like the Padres. They're hanging around year after year. Look at the Brewers. Look at Tampa. They got small payrolls, and the Brewers are in the playoffs every single year. Tampa used to be in the playoffs every single year. So we'll see. But I think it does hurt MLB's fight. Like, okay, we're not making enough money here. When you see a team sold for 3.9, and it's a team that's on LA, New York, or Chicago.
Bob, you mentioned it now that this record sale now for the Padres. Well, eventually we're going to have like restructuring of the divisions if you're going to have maybe expansion in Major League Baseball. If the Padres go for $3.9 billion, what are these like expansion franchises going to go for Major League Baseball? And like you said, that's got to be a negotiating and collective bargaining on how you look at it. You can't tell me you're losing money when you're selling baseball teams for $4 billion.
Yeah, I mean the expansion fees right now they're estimated to be at $2.2 billion per team. So you divide that up, that's another $150 million for the players. They're also talking about centralized national TV fund. That'd be $250 million per team. So I mean things look good. I mean the gambling revenue now is greater and will become even bigger in baseball. So money's no problem, and that's what the players are arguing like now. You guys are making a ton of money. We're making a ton of money. Let's keep the system the way it is.
30 seconds. Do you think that you'll see a work stoppage in December?
I would have said yes before the Padres sale. Now I think no, or if there's a work stoppage, that certainly won't cost them any regular season games. If there's a work stoppage in December, January, who cares? But as long as the season's kept intact. So I'll say we will not miss any games next year.
That's awesome. I love hearing that. Bob, I like the Bo Jackson jersey on the back of the wall too. Played against him a couple times. Love it. Thank you so much, my friend.
All right, take care, Danny. Good talking as always.
Final thoughts next right here on SportsGrid. All right, final thoughts here. And it's been a very interesting 2 weeks, to say the least, when it comes to this Dianna Russini and Mike Vrabel story. It's completely dominated social media. Dianna Russini and her resignation letter that she sent to the folks over at the New York Times and at The Athletic, and she became collateral damage when it came to this. There's no question that there's a double standard in broadcasting. And where I'm going here with this, so she took the brunt of it, all social media-wise, the last couple weeks. It's funny that, I think of some of the conversations that we've had over the last couple days about double standards and how women are covered in sports, let alone how women in media are covering sports. So Mike Tirico, who has had at least over 10 sexual misconduct issues when he was at ESPN, and nobody has said anything when it comes to his misconduct at ESPN. These are documented. Books have been written about his behavior at ESPN. Who hired this guy at NBC? Harvey Weinstein? I mean, he was revered coming off the Milan Olympic Games. People were saying what a great job he is. What a great job that he's done. What a wonderful person. And yet, this guy's got numerous sexual misconduct conversations that they've had when he was an employee at ESPN. Nobody's held him to a high standard. This guy just got through covering the Super Bowl, and he covered the Olympic Games. So when people look at sports broadcasting and go, wait a minute, why every time a situation comes up with Dianna Russini? By the way, I'm not defending these alleged acts here by these two. And by the way, nor do I care. I don't care about pillow talk. That, to me, I have no interest in it. I get my sports. I actually think Dianna Russini does a great job at covering the National Football League. I think she's a quality writer, and I think her work is impeccable. I think it's been fantastic. Her issues, whether or not she has a relationship with the head football coach that could date back to her time in Tennessee when she was covering the Titans, I could care less. To sit around and say that I care about that, I care about the story she delivers. I don't care how she gets the story. Why would I care? You're under the impression that these people in broadcasting and in the National Football League, for that matter, all sports, are people of character. You're giving people the benefit of the doubt. I don't give anybody the benefit of the doubt, because you know why? I don't know you from a can of paint. How could I give somebody the benefit of the doubt when it comes to character when character's earned? I'm never surprised when I hear stories like the Mike Vrabel, Dianna Russini story. And I'm not surprised when I hear a story like Mike Tirico. My problem becomes this, though. The media piles on Dianna Russini for being a person of low character, and you prop up a guy like Mike Tirico, who has had all these issues with sexual misconduct in his past. He's elevated to covering the greatest stories in the history of American sports, Super Bowls and Olympic Games. Mike Tirico was fantastic in Milan. Mike Tirico was fantastic in covering the Super Bowl. I thought he was great at it. But don't give me these double standards when you're talking about character. Character is earned. Okay? Character is something that is not just given to somebody because you give them the benefit of the doubt. You give people the benefit of the doubt for being good people. But when it comes to high character, that's stuff that's earned. I couldn't understand this whole week or these last 10 days, the double standard of Dianna Russini having a alleged relationship with Mike Vrabel. And quite frankly, like I said, how that even mattered to people. And then you turn around and you look at Mike Tirico with all those numerous reports of sexual misconduct. One guy's propped up and the other person is torn down. I guess it's where we are in today's society, especially when it comes to women in sports. You want to know why there's not a lot of women in sports broadcasting and in sports journalism? Because there is that double standard. Look, I don't live under a rock, and I know it's not a perfect world. But if this wasn't an example of double standards here, and we just watched it play out right in front of us the last 10 days, I don't know what is. Tirico's this. He's revered as one of the greatest sportscasters, and Dianna Russini is being torn down because of alleged relationship she had with an NFL coach. You can't make this up. And at the end of the day, yes, there's a double standard in journalism and there's a double standard in broadcasting. Is it fair? Welcome to America. Of course it's not fair. Of course it's not. But that's where we are today. Don't ever call me a journalist. I would never in a million years want to go down that lane. We appreciate each and every single one of you. We'll see you on Sunday. Ian Eagle will join us then. Catch you on the flip side.